Now, obviously, this is another important offseason for the future of this franchise, but I don't want the offseason period to last 3 episodes, because that was pretty ridiculous. So, of course, as always, we will look into the awards and the playoff trees. As you see, the Chicago Blackhawks, once again, Stanley Cup champions. Hooray! They only lost 3 games on their way to that. And unfortunately, the Utica Comets did not make the playoffs. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms win the Calder Cup this season. And as far as his awards go, I mean, come on, Chicago over and over again. But we'll see. I doubt we picked up any hardware. Patrick Kane certainly did. Jesus, he really did. Dal Coll wins the Calder. And I believe, yeah, we don't have a shot in hell. Bergeron continues to win the Selke Award, which is good news. I mean, if somebody had to win it, I'm glad it's him. As far as other players go, Danton Heinen, Jesus Christ, the Providence Bruins had quite a few winners. But there we go. We do have, I had a feeling that was going to happen. We do have an award winner. It is Thatcher Demko for the best goaltender in the AHL. And Victor Svedberg also picks up an award as well. So not too bad. Now, I was certainly tempted to trade up, considering we have these 2 first-round picks, but unfortunately the asking price from Tampa and from the New York Rangers was a bit too high. The New York Rangers drafted Nolan Patrick from the Brandon Wheat Kings first overall, and with our first pick of this draft, we are going to take the Canadian Gabriel Velarde. Has really good size for a playmaker and is only 17 years old. We'll see if he is actually top 6. And even better, he is low elite. What a pickup there for us. Now, rather than trading up in this draft, we are actually going to trade down. We send the 22nd overall pick to Tampa for their 2nd round pick this year, which is the number 31 pick, the very first pick of the 2nd round, and a 3rd and 6th round pick next year. As far as the scouted players that we have, we don't really have information on anybody, but in the 2nd round, we have some players that we could potentially steal for where they should be drafted as opposed to where they will be drafted. So we trade down with Tampa. Now, as you can see, we have a lot of AHL potential guys that we didn't, in all honesty, didn't really have a chance to scout out too much. I expected the draft to be a little bit deeper than it was in terms of AHL players. And unfortunately, that has not turned out to be the case. And as far as who we're drafting, we are going to take Marcus Phillips. He is the prospect that we know the most about. Hopefully he lives up to potential, and he is only low top 6, so a little bit of a swing and miss. And rather than trading down, this time we're actually going to trade up. It's a little bit of a risk pick, but there was one more player in that pool of 2nd rounders that I'm going to take a risk on. So we give up a 2nd round pick down the line and a 3rd round pick next year for a 2nd and 6th in this draft. And with that pick, we're going to take a risk, but we are going to draft Cal Fleury from the Kootenay Ice, and we will see if he can be a little bit better than what he is projected to be, and he only ends up being high 7th. So admittingly, a little bit of a swing and a miss in terms of trading up. With our next pick here in the 3rd round, we are going to draft power forward Tomas Sustal and hope that he is a little bit better than advertised in terms of potential. He ends up being bottom 6, so that's not the biggest swing and miss we have had in the draft so far. This next pick is a risk pick. I don't expect it to pan out, but it's the name. It's something that resonates with me. And because of that, in the 3rd round, we are going to draft Jake Paquette and hope that he ends up being a little bit better than advertised. AHL top 2. I had a feeling it wasn't going to pan out, but just go with me on that pick, guys. Go with me on that pick. With our next pick from the Flint Firebirds, it is a center playmaker, Will Bitton, and unfortunately, he stays as AHL top 6 potential. The pick after that, we go with defenseman Brennan Manel from the Vancouver Giants. Let's hope he's a little bit better than AHL top 4. He is 7th potential, but you see the Devils, they also swung a miss on some prospects, so at least I'm not the only one. Next up from the Acadie Bathurst Titan, it is defenseman Jake Barter. And as well, pretty much with every pick you're going to see, we have to hope he's better than his potential is listed. And unfortunately, he was not. Our next pick from the Windsor Spitfires, it is 6'6" defenseman Logan Stanley. And we will see if he is better. He ends up being 7th D potential. Not too bad. A change of pace as we draft a forward from the Everett Silvertips. It is sniper Patrick Bykoff. And again, despite the fact it says exact potential, we know that can be a lie, and it is, as he is bottom 6 forward potential. Continuing to restock the forward cabinet, we go with Sudbury Wolves prospect Michael Pezzetta, a two-way forward at center. Don't mind that he's a center. We can play him at a position, and he ends up being bottom 6 as well. Another pick here in the 5th round, and we again go with the defenseman, this time from the Windsor Spitfires, defenseman Tyler Nother, hoping he can be a little bit better, and he ends up being a 7th D potential as well. Another pick in the 5th round, and we are going to take a little bit of goalie insurance here with the Swede Adam Werner from Färjestad. We'll see if he can at least be backup potential. It's a little bit of a risk, and he ends up being backup potential. Absolutely perfect. Another defensive prospect from the Saginaw Spirit. It is Rocky Kaura. We will see if he can grow to hopefully be better than that. He ends up being top 6. With our next pick, we take Finnish sniper from the Owen Sound Attack, Petrus Palmu. And hopefully he can be a little bit better than he is. He ends up being AHL potential. And that would be it for our draft, guys. You see the list of players. Let's move on to the re-sign phase. So moving on now, I don't think that was our worst draft ever. We got pretty lucky with the top couple of picks. Got a little bit shaky towards the 3rd round. Obviously, we traded up, we traded down, but I'm not too upset about the way that draft went. So moving on here, we are going to let go of Jeff Zatkoff. In the meantime, we will also let go of Michael Layton. As far as goaltending goes, if Demko has a big boost, he will obviously be the starter with Eddie Lack as the backup. If that's the case, we'll probably sign Werner or Maxim Ovechkin to be the backup in Utica. Defensively, and great news, Nikita Tramkin has jumped to an 87 overall. He is, of course, a restricted free agent, but he is ready for a big-time contract. We will look to give that to him. Let's see if he takes 5-5, because now we do need to start thinking of the money. But as you see, we have plenty of cap space. We're $20 million under the floor, so things are looking good for us. Colton Parayko also needs a new deal, and we will hopefully get him at $4 million even. That would be pretty good. Let's take a look. Ben Hutton needs a contract. You guys know I'm a little bit shaky on him, but we will look to re-sign him, hopefully for 2.1, and he may very well be traded in the upcoming season. Harrison will be released. TJ Brennan, am I regretting that contract just a little bit? Andre Schuster. Now this is a tough one because he is in the last year of his development, and I'm really thinking there's no way. I'm going to let Andre Schuster go. I have no problem admitting that was a swing and a miss on that acquisition, but there is no way he ends up being an 80, even a low 80, let alone a mid-80s guy like we need him to be. That roster space or that roster spot could go to a player who actually has better potential. Steven Kampfer will be let go. Of course, he was just a part of a trade. Brett Regner, the same thing. Chychrun's up to a 70 overall. We may sign him in the preseason if we need an extra spot. How are some of these other guys doing? Manel's a 72, Cowra's a 67. So some of the players we have look like they could be pretty decent, but man, Paquette ended up being a 50. EA, you're killing me on that one. That's cruel. Moving forward, we're going to release Harper. He has no use to us. A couple of prospects here. So we are definitely going to have to sign some prospects. Jonathan Drouin needs a contract, and let's go 2.8 for 3 years. That would be great to get Drouin under that deal. Gounce, we will definitely re-sign. He wants a one-way deal, which is a little bit disappointing, but we'll see if we can make that work. He might jump up to the fourth line this year. Chris Higgins, I am so sorry. I've wasted like 2 years of your career now. You are free to go. Brian Flynn is also free to go, and that does it for the left wings. So moving on to centers, and let's see here. Bo Horvat needs a contract. He only wants 1 year. We're going to bump it up to 4, and I'm tempted to give him a little bit more money than what he's asking for, because again, we are going to have to compete for the floor this season, although we will just be able to do the same thing we did this past year. Although Mark Savard and Manny Malhotra, as you see, are not here. They retired. So we've moved forward a day. You've seen all the contracts we had to send out. Parayko, Tryamkin. I'm pretty much expecting everybody to re-sign here, and I'm pretty sure that was it. The limited amount of players that we needed to re-sign, I'm pretty sure that's it. So it is going to be a pretty quick re-sign phase this time out. That is it. Let's move on to free agency. Now, the big question was who would be here as far as big fish defensemen, and unfortunately, not a single one of the guys we pegged to be here is in the free agent pool. Every single one of them were re-signed by their teams. So as far as free agents go, we have just for the most part only sent offers to prospects that were available. For the most part, I expected them all to sign. Korostelov decided to go to the Leafs, but obviously the huge disappointment right now is with none of those defensemen. Byrne, Hedman, Shattenkirk, just nobody was there. That really threw a wrench into our plans, and we're going to have to make that big impact of getting a defenseman here in the preseason. Let's go up to it. So our first move of the preseason was to sign somebody to get our cap up a little bit higher, because again, we were so low we weren't able to make a roster move, and there was somebody left in free agency. Martin Hansel, 86 overall. We signed him to a 1-year deal for $5 million, and you will see why I did that in 1 minute. Okay, to be honest, we were still in a little bit of a cap situation, so we signed Andrew Ferens to a 1-year, $5.5 million deal to get closer to the cap floor. Now on paper, we've given up a lot here. Kennins, Yaskin, Ben Hutton, and the player you don't see is Austin Strand for Madison Bowie, a 4th and a 5th in this next season. Now, Madison Bowie, decent bit of trade value, top 4 potential at 22 years old and 83 overall. We'll go take a look at what we just gave up to the Capitals as well. Ben Hutton, no progression, still low top 6 now, 24 years old at an 82 overall. I just don't trust that he's going to grow. I am more than happy to give up on him. Austin Strand, somebody I'm happy to give up on because he was in the Bruins GM mode series, and we've already seen him progress and what he can end up doing. As far as the forwards go, Kennins, still top 9 for potential 83 overall. He's 26 though. Is he going to get much better? Probably not. I like him for the stats, but once you see who we have at this point, you might understand giving him up a little bit more. And Dmitry Yaskin, as you see, has dropped to a 79. He's actually regressed, so I'm more than happy to give up on him. And remember this about these trades, because you can say, oh, like the trades I made, when I traded the Sedins and all that stuff, I'm trading away a lot of those prospects, but they were always going to be risk picks. The thing was, if any of them turned out to be something, awesome, but if not, we at least can make Utica competitive. As my voice almost gives out, we can at least make Utica competitive, as the AHL squad for Vancouver was dreadful. Our next trade is with the Boston Bruins, and it is Victor Svedberg straight up for a 3rd round pick. Now, Victor Svedberg, still a decent player. He actually got quite a bit of progression as well, up to an 82 overall, but the problem is He is 26 years old, and I don't see him getting any better. He's actually fallen in overall since we've traded him. He was another one of those guys that if he jumped up to be an 83 or an 84, that was great, but I just don't see him progressing to the point that we needed him to be at for that to have been successful. And our last trade is Vlad Nemesnikov and Brendan Gaunce to the Montreal Canadiens for their second and Chicago's second in the upcoming draft. Now this was another tough trade, but it's another situation where I don't see either of these guys turning into the players that we need them to be. So yes, a lot of the players we acquired in the last offseason are being let go, but that is because we have seen progression from other players that we also acquired around the same time that make these guys obsolete. And of course we trade them away for draft picks and continue to refuel our development and our younger players. Nemesnikov, still an 82 overall, didn't have the greatest season. He's 24 now. At best he hits an 84 overall. We already have players better than that. And Gaunce, same thing, a little bit of progression, but I don't see him turning into a player that would end up on our roster. I wouldn't have minded having him and Kennens on the fourth line going forward, but let's take a look at our team now, see where they're at, and you might understand these moves a little bit more. So here we go. The roster is finally set, and I can show you guys what exactly we are now working with for the upcoming season. The top line, Jonathan Drouin still at an 85 overall, with Austin Matthews now an 88, and Steven Stamkos still at a 94. Second line will be Drake Caggiula with Hansel and Lindholm. And I wanted to say this about Hansel because I can imagine some people in the comments saying this. Why would I pick him up yet trade Granlund with the excuse of center depth? And again, my main reason was the salary cap, although we now have gone and sent Andrew Ferentz, and we've also had to send Dan Paille an inflated offer to get us up to the cap spot after some of those trades. But I don't mind playing certain people out of position. I could have done that with Granlund. I just didn't think Granlund would end up being as good of a player. And with Hansel, it does make us a better team at this point. If we didn't get Hansel, we would have ended up having probably Ronald Kennens on the fourth line. So there's no denying this makes us a better team, and it is only for one season. Third line, moving on, Jimmy Vesey, Horvat, and Anthony Mantha. And on the fourth line, Jared McCann, Jake Virtanen, and Anton Slepyshev now up to an 85 overall. So now obviously McCann and Virtanen both at the overall that you saw Ronald Kennens at. So I am more than content with moving them. They're both better than Nemesnikov. And right now, I have to admit, I'm happy with these lines. Again, there is so much potential. There is not one person here that is below a top 9. The lowest overall guy is Slepyshev, and he is up to an 85 overall. Granted, he didn't do too well with us at the end of last season, but I am intrigued to see what he can do. A lot of question marks on this team. It's still a very young team, but it has boatloads of potential. Defensively, Trampkin will be with Colton Parayko, and we still do have the extreme issue of having too many righties. Down in the AHL, we actually have the inverse of too many lefties, but thankfully, with Troy Stecher, I'm fine with having him be a right-handed shot on the left side, because look at his passing, look at his shooting. He will be able to get pucks away, and it shouldn't handicap him as he is with Chris Tanev. And then the new third pairing, Frankie Corrado and Madison Bowie. Bowie, of course, has a rocket of a shot from the point, the former Kelowna Rockets. So it makes perfect sense. But I'm much happier to see Madison Bowie there, someone with better potential than Ben Hutton or Svedberg. Goaltenders, he hasn't taken as big of a jump as planned, but Thatcher Demko is an 83 overall. He is now in the backup role potential, but he will be our starter over Eddie Lack. So Thatcher Demko is here. He's not mid to high 80s yet, but he will get there. This is going to be a big year for him. Down in the AHL, a lot of familiar names. Solaric, Castles, and Laine, the top pairing. Then we have Jesse Gabrielle and Devin Sidorov 2 new signings from free agency, playing with Alexi Sarela. On the third line, Alvaness with Cornell and Puljujärvi. And on the fourth line, Sorelli, Carlson, and Luke. Defensively, we have Valiev with TJ Brennan, Peters with Slavin, Van de Sample, a free agent pickup, with Kaura, who we of course drafted. Word to the wise, I did sign Jacob Chychrun, but he is still 19, so we couldn't send him down to AHL. So we are burning a year of his AHL contract, or of his entry-level contract, but I am not too concerned. Goaltending, Ty Edmonds, an 81 overall, will be the starter, with Troy Timpano as the backup. I could have signed Warner, I could have signed Ovechkin, but we will wait. We'll see what Timpano becomes, and maybe his value will go up. But there you have it, guys. That is it for the off-season. And in the next episode, we move up to Season 3. But to sum up this episode, what did we really accomplish? Well, obviously, we had the big swing and miss in terms of none of those defensemen I really counted on being there, actually being available in free agency. We made some picks, or we made some trades for picks up and down throughout the draft. We've continued to restock the cupboard, out with the old, with guys like Nemesnikov and Yaskin, who are clearly going to be just a little bit behind who we already have. We're restocked for the future. I imagine that we're going to keep doing that and just changing pieces around. But our core is here. We know who our core is because they are in our lineup right now, with the exception, of course, of Martin Hansel, who is just a rental. But let me know, of course, in the comments below what you guys thought of the moves made in this episode, or the moves that perhaps I didn't make in this episode. Admittingly, and it's no excuse, it is 5 in the morning. I am fucking exhausted as we wrap up this. The raw file, I'm looking at the timer right now, 1 hour and 31 minutes. So don't say I don't invest time. Don't hate on my trades too much, because god damn it, it is so hard to find certain trades. But in the end, I am happy with the moves. I am happy with this episode, and I hope you guys have enjoyed as well. If you have, make sure to drop a like, and I will see you in the next episode as we start Season 3. Can we make the playoffs? I'm starting to think that we can.